Coming up, it's a massive smash hit, one of the biggest ever. And it was inspired by not one, but multiple stalker encounters. One of them was by one of the most demented groupies ever. This Disturbed fan wrote letter after letter claiming she and this artist were meant to be together forever, and that he was the father of her baby. Then one day she sent him a package with a weapon telling him that they should use it on themselves so they could be together in the afterlife. Whoa, talk about creepy. However, this incident and others like it fueled the lyrics of this dark and sinister but oh so catchy song. But you know what? Fans weren't the only ones obsessed with this ditty. In fact, this artist was so consumed by his own song, he didn't even notice that his car was on fire while driving down the freeway listening to it in his headphones. Completely locked into the song, he almost died. It's an unbelievable story, and there's so many more like it about this one. It's coming up on Professor of Rock. Hey, music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. You know, if you remember trying to figure out both the fastest and best way to open a vinyl record, a cassette tape, or compact disc, you're going to dig this channel of deep musical nostalgia. I have my own secret. Make sure to subscribe below right now by clicking the bell so that you know when our latest interviews and videos are coming out. Also, check us out on Patreon for more content and help us to keep it a daily channel and keep the interviews flowing and the stories going. So it's time for another edition of our series, The New Standards. This is the show that takes an in-depth look into songs that really transcend genre, decade, and fads. Songs that are landmark tracks in music history. For today's episode, we're giving you the biggest song for the most successful studio album ever released. A commercial and cultural juggernaut. A song that was #1 for 7 weeks. And it may just be the most awarded hit of the 80s. It's one of the most compelling stories behind any song we've ever done here. I'm talking about Billie Jean from Michael Jackson's 100 million mega album, Thriller. No album has come within a country mile of this one, as far as sales go. The triumphant tale of Thriller begins not with victory, but with bitter defeat, actually, at least in the mind of Michael Jackson. August 10th, 1979, Jackson released his 5th solo album, Off the Wall. By most anyone's standards, the record was an enormous success, a blockbuster. Big on the charts, it went to #3 in the US, #5 in the UK, #4 in Canada, and #1 in Australia. Within a couple of years, it would sell nearly 10 million copies and rack up 20 million plus worldwide. Off the Wall is one of the first albums to have 4 hit singles as well. It spawned 4 top 10 hits, 2 that went to #1, Don't Stop Till You Get Enough. Don't stop till you get enough, people. For Rock With You. And then She's Out of My Life.
She's out of my life.
And the title track.
Living off the wall.
This was a major breakthrough for Michael Jackson, who was trying to establish himself as a solo artist. But Michael Jackson felt slighted. He had larger-than-life expectations for himself, and he believed Off the Wall should have been much, much bigger. In particular, he was really bothered by the 1980 Grammy Awards. It's where he took home just a single award for the album, his Best Male R&B Vocal Performance for Don't Stop Till You Get Enough.
I really appreciate this. This is really beautiful.
Now, he had been expecting to get Record of the Year, and reportedly, he cried for some time after the show. He was very upset by what he perceived as the rejection from his peers. Said Michael about it, Off the Wall was well received by my fans, and I think that's why the Grammy nominations hurt. That experience lit a fire in my soul. All I could think of was the next album and what I would do with it. I wanted it to be truly great. End of quote. So he teamed up with producer Quincy Jones again, also songwriter Rod Temperton, for his next solo record. MJ told the pair that he wanted Thriller to be the biggest selling album ever. Quincy and Rod kind of laughed about it, saying that, your expectations are unrealistic. Michael was undeterred, though. Going into Thriller, Michael Jackson amassed 30 songs. Some say as much as 100. 9 would make the cut. Recording sessions took place from April 14th to November 8th, 1982 at Westlake Recording Studios in Hollywood, California, with much of the Off the Wall personnel returning. Going over the album's roster, the quality of contributors, it's amazing. Paul McCartney, Eddie Van Halen, Toto members Steve Lukather, David Page, Steve and Jeff Porcaro, the brothers, as well as James Ingram, Janet Jackson, David Foster, plus actor Vincent Price and Greg Phillinganes, so many great ones. Thriller by Design ambitiously crafted a flow in multiple directions. Jackson and Jones intentionally wrote and selected songs that would appeal to really a crossover audience. I mean, Beat It was made for rockers, a la Eddie Van Halen. Girl Is Mine was adult contemporary fare. PYT, Pretty Young Thing, was for fans of funk. Human Nature was soothing soft rock. Wanna Be Starting Something was a post-disco pop piece. Lady in My Life was a sensuous R&B ballad. Quiet Storm. Thriller was a supernatural creature all its own. It was amazing. Thriller, the album, dropped on December 1st, 82. By the end of 83, it would sell a mind-blowing 13 million copies in the US and nearly 22 million worldwide. Turns out Jackson wasn't crying anymore. At its sales peak, Thriller was selling 500,000 copies a week for a long, long time. It spent an unbelievable 37 weeks at number one in its chart run. That's a record for a non-soundtrack album, actually. But Thriller's significance goes far beyond just the numbers. The album became a multimedia cultural phenomenon that's never been matched. It signified the beginning of really a new sound, a new kind of pop performer, and a new musical standard. During its peak, from really 82 to 84, into 85 really, Thriller crossed all barriers: age, gender, ethnicity, nationality, musical taste. It was embraced by fans of rock and roll as well as fans of R&B. It reached beyond America to every populated continent. The reception was everything and more that Jackson had wanted for Off the Wall. People talk about Taylor Swift, it was like Taylor Swift times 10. Long before Michael launched into the Thriller sessions in April of 82, he was already hard at work on new material, though. He was stockpiling demos. Quincy Jones said Michael was writing music like a machine. Now, during this time, Jackson's typical process began by recording song ideas into a tape recorder. Laying down beats and rhythms, mimicking instruments, humming melodies, and then later he would take these a cappella demos in the studio and flesh them out. It was in the fall of 1981 when inspiration struck for today's featured track, Billie Jean. The beginnings of the song came to him after he heard Daryl Hall and John Oates' new single, I Can't Go For That, No Can Do. MJ couldn't get that rhythm section out of his head. Now, the song's moody bass line and sparse drum beat was just hypnotic. Michael immediately wanted to create something similar, but very distinct. And then in his words, the bass line and the melody, it crept over me. Billie Jean had begun. Years later, while recording We Are the World, Jackson confessed to the duo that their bass line had inspired Billie Jean. Daryl Hall and John Oates were surprised and flattered by this admission. They loved what Michael Jackson had done with it. MJ would continue to work on Billie Jean for months. He knew he was onto something special. Said Michael about it, a musician knows hit material. It just has to feel right. Everything has to feel in place. It fulfills you and makes you feel good. You know it when you hear it. That's how I felt about Billie Jean. I knew it was going to be big while I was writing it. In fact, Michael was so consumed by writing it, it almost cost him his life. So one day was out on a drive with his assistant Nelson Hayes. He was soaking in this song, sitting in the back seat wearing headphones. He was completely oblivious to his surroundings. And then after pulling off of the Ventura freeway, a motorcyclist drove up beside the car and was motioning to them to, roll down the window. As they roll down the window, he's frantically pointing to the hood. Smoke, smoke. I mean, there's smoke billowing out of the engine. Michael was so absorbed in Billie Jean, he barely noticed what was happening. Later, Michael Jackson would admit that the cyclist probably saved his life as the car could have blown up. That's how hypnotic the song was. As we continue to break down the song, I do want to thank our sponsor, Zenni Eyewear, the glasses I always wear. Yeah, I was at a Depeche Mode concert, and someone yelled out, "Hey, Professor!" And I turned around and I saw this guy in the crowd, and he's pointing at his Zennis, and he's like giving his thumbs up. I love that. Zenni will not let you down. Amazing frames at a spectacular price. I've had a lot of people stop me and show me their Zennis. Click on the info button right up here to get yours today. Best price. So Jackson's team was likewise all in on this song, and under his direction, they were just as meticulous. They knew that Michael wanted it to be the centerpiece of this album, which he wanted to be the biggest album ever. According to engineer Bruce Sweden, the goal was to give Billie Jean the most unique sonic personality of any song they had ever recorded. Actually, there was one team member who took issue with Billie Jean, and it was the maestro, the producer, Quincy Jones. If you can believe it, Quincy Jones didn't want to include Billie Jean on Thriller. He just didn't think it was strong enough. Additionally, Jones and Jackson argued over Billie Jean's title and its iconic bass intro. In his autobiography, Michael said that Jones wanted to change the title to Not My Lover. Quincy was, concerned that listeners would think that Jackson was singing about tennis legend Billie Jean King. You can understand that. MJ, he wasn't having any of that, though. He knew audiences were smarter than that, and he always treated his audiences respectfully that way. Regarding the 30-second introduction, Quincy is quoted as having said, "The intro to Billie Jean was so long you could shave during it. I said, we got to get to the melody sooner." But Michael said, it's what made him want to dance. And when Michael Jackson said something makes him want to dance, you just don't argue. So he won over. And rightly so. I mean, can you imagine Billie Jean without that? Also, in an interview with Vulture a few years back, Quincy Jones would say that Michael had stolen the bass from another icon song, State of Independence by disco queen Donna Summer. That's actually written by Yes singer John Anderson and Vangelis. And he would say, and I quote, "Michael stole a lot of stuff. He stole a lot of songs. State of Independence and Billie Jean, the notes don't lie, man. He was as Machiavellian as they come." End of quote. One of the most iconic R&B pop songs ever put to tape for sure, Billie Jean tells the story of a female stalker who claims that Michael is the father of her baby. The lyrics detail the schemes of this groupie who, like a queen from a movie scene, seduces him in an attempt to trap him. She was more like a beauty queen from a movie scene. Michael sings that people always told him, be careful what you do. Don't go around breaking young girls' hearts. Of course, the smell of sweet perfume and an invitation to her room puts him in a compromising position. Before he knows it, she claims that he is the one. But Michael Jackson fires back saying that she's just a girl and the kid is not his son. And really, that's what the song's about. I didn't really catch that until like 10 years after. I mean, if you really listen to it, the entire song is dark and sinister in tone. And just as irresistible as this girl appears to be, it's a disturbing and seemingly all too real account. But was it real? Was it really a Billie Jean? Now, according to Michael Jackson, this femme fatale is fictional. It's based on more than just a few girls, that he and his brothers encountered in the 70s and early 80s. Said Michael about it, "A lot of people have asked me about that song, and the answer is very simple. There was never a real Billie Jean. The girl in the song is a composite of people that we've been plagued by over the years." Michael would continue to deny that Billie Jean was real clear up until his death in 2009. But real or not, plenty of women played the part. For example, one girl showed up at his house claiming to be his wife. Others claimed to have slept with him and made threats. There were always girls waiting in the lobby and coming up the stairway of his hotels. I remember there was a story going around when I was a kid, urban legend, but I heard it from many people, that he came home one time and found a girl in a bikini laying out by his pool, welcoming him home and claiming to have his baby in her tummy. She broke into his house. I mean, there's so many urban legends about this one. Another one from a Jackson biography by J. Randy Taraborelli, Magic and the Madness. He posited that Billie Jean was inspired by a young female who reportedly wrote Jackson letters in '81. In them, she claimed he was the father of her baby. Jackson ignored the letters, but they kept coming. Professing her love for Michael, this girl said she couldn't stop thinking about him and they were meant to be together. Dozens of more letters poured in. In one of them, she claimed that the baby and Michael had similar eyes, giving new meaning to the lyrics. She looked at me and showed a photo of baby crying. His eyes were like mine. Michael was having nightmares and feared that she would turn up at his front gate. And then one day, he received a package from her. Michael opened it to discover a photo of her. It was a sweet and innocent high school graduation picture. But also in the box was a gun with a note, which asked Michael to use it on himself on a certain day at a certain time. She would do the same thing right after she disposed of her baby. She wrote that if they couldn't be together in this life, they could be together in the next one. Horrified, Michael framed the photo and put it on his coffee table. As twisted as that sounds, he didn't want to forget her face. He didn't want to be blindsided by this disturbed young girl. Fortunately for Michael, she never turned up. Later, he learned that she had been committed to an insane asylum. Anyway, lots of stories. Who knows what's true? Billie Jean was released as a single on January 2nd, 1983, and by the next month, it had broken into the top 10 of the Hot 100. And by the week of March 5th, it took the top spot, beating out Bob Seger, Stray Cats, Culture Club, and Duran Duran for top honors. Also in March, after some contentious negotiations with MTV, Billie Jean became the first video by a major African-American artist to feature on the network, if you can believe that. But to direct the video, Michael chose Steve Barron, who had just finished the Human League's Don't You Want Me. Barron suggested a treatment based on the Midas touch, where everything Michael touched turned to gold. Sidewalks, stairs, and the bed at the end. They're all set aglow. The video also featured Michael performing an array of signature dance moves, some of which he made up on the spot, apparently. As Billie Jean went into heavy rotation on MTV, the song doubled down on the smash hit status. It was #1 for 7 weeks, like I said, on the Hot 100. It also went to #1 on the Cashbox chart and top 3 in at least 20 countries, including #1 in the UK, Ireland, Spain, France, Switzerland, Italy, Belgium, Canada, and Australia. Then on May 16, 1983, the Jackson brothers reunited to perform on the TV special Motown 25 Yesterday, Today, and Forever. Reportedly, close to 50 million people watched the show. The set featured a medley of Jackson 5 classics, but the highlight was what happened after all that. When Michael took the stage by himself, as the first beats of Billie Jean began to play, the audience exploded into screams. Although Jackson chose to lip-sync the track, his captivating performance more than made up for it. His legendary routine included flawless spins and moves that seemed to defy gravity. And then when you thought it couldn't get any better, it happened. Michael Jackson pulled off an otherworldly move that shocked everybody, including Fred Astaire, called him the next day. Talked about the moonwalk. As Michael glided backward, it was a moment of absolute magic. His feet seemed to hover above the floor. When Billie Jean ended, Michael took a bow and basked in the raving applause. The world had just witnessed history. Like I said, Fred Astaire calling him the next day saying, you blew my mind. Of course, Billie Jean has been all over pop culture since its early days. Back in February of '84, Pepsi launched their Choice of a New Generation campaign, with Billie Jean being reworked into their official jingle. Titled Pepsi Generation, the song was featured in a couple of commercials along with Michael and his brothers. Billie Jean in its original form also appeared in several TV shows and movies like Fame the Series, The Simpsons.
She took the girl who says that I am the one.
Charlie's Angels, the movie, American Dad, and you can even faintly hear Marty McFly singing it as he moonwalks in Back to the Future 3. Such a classic 80s moment. Billie Jean was also humorously parodied by Steve Martin on the short-lived TV series called The New Show. Additionally, Billie Jean appears in Jackson's 1988 film Moonwalker. And the video game version as well. Today, Billie Jean has been streamed nearly 4 billion times, making it the most streamed song not only from Thriller, but in all of MJ's catalog. Fittingly, Beat It comes in at number 2. I say that because while Billie Jean was still sitting at the top of the charts, Beat It was released as the next single. A conventional wisdom warned that this was kind of a bad idea. But with Michael's blessing, Beat It was issued just a month after Billie Jean. His label told him he was crazy. It would kill Billie Jean as a single, that momentum. But that never happened. In fact, both songs were in the top 10 at the same time, and Beat It ultimately rose to number 1. He almost replaced himself at number 1. He missed it by 1 week because of Come On Eileen. After Beat It, 4 more top 10 singles followed: Wanna Be Startin' Something, Human Nature, PYT, Pretty Young Thing, and Thriller all broke the Billboard Hot 100 top 10, along with its lead single, The Girl Is Mine, which reached number 2. That made 7 top 10 hits. Only 2 other albums have done that. But think about that for a second. Thriller had just 9 songs. 7 went top 10. That's incredible. Never been done before or since. This album was revolutionary. With each new single, music video, and TV performance, Thriller's momentum, it snowballed, flattening the competition altogether and crowning Jackson the undisputed king of pop. By 1984, Michael Jackson was the biggest entertainer in the world. Billie Jean was the song that kicked it all into overdrive. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Leave us a comment about the King of Pop, Thriller, and Billie Jean about this. So what do you think about these stories, about the bass line, about taking from Hall & Oates and from Donna Summer, and just the makeup of this entire song? It's such a unique song. Let's have a great discussion below. If you like our content, we invite you to subscribe. We'd love to have you. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends.